I have to bring to your attention the fact that Owlcat dropped a video yesterday, and it is quite interesting. It's about the Expanse, obviously, their first AAA action RPG game set in space, sci-fi game, and they revealed a bunch of things. In this video, they talk about how it actually hired a professional astronaut, a former employee of NASA, to navigate the difficulties of zero-G factors in their game, meaning basically space. Space has no gravity, right? So how would combat work that way? How would moving around work that way? They talk about the compromise they struck in terms of wearing magnetic boots that pin you sort of down to solid surfaces or the ground as a way of making it realistic, how sounds actually work in space, and trying to find a nice kind of middle road compromise between what's ultra realistic, which could potentially not be fun, and something that's a video game, and video games are meant to be fun. An example they give is combat in space, combat in a zero-G environment, and how things are supposed to sound, that you might feel a rattling or vibration in your suit, your oxygen suit, and this sort of thing. And they actually have a fair bit of in-game footage. Obviously, it's something like pre-alpha, so, take everything with a grain of salt in the sense that this is not the final build by any stretch. But what I really want to say here is that them going to these lengths of hiring an actual expert, a NASA astronaut who's been in space, who's lived in space, to help them flesh out this game is incredible. And I think it really drives home the point that Owlcat is damn serious about this project. They really, really want this to be good. They want to capture every possible aspect, every little bit of what this game would feel like if you were actually there. And to be honest, this doesn't surprise me. Call me an Owlcat fanboy, I guess I am. Owlcat has never really disappointed me, and I think they are going to really knock this one out of the park. The more I see of this game, the more confident I am that they're really doing their best to bring this to life. And I think, and I have to be honest here, that I have more faith in this project than I do in Exodus at this stage. I mean, they're both sci-fi games, obviously, but they're very different, right? You can make the argument very easily, and I think it's true, that the Expanse is much more grounded in reality. It's much more of a realistic type of sci-fi game in the sense that you have zero-G affecting everything. That's going to be a huge factor in combat. There'll probably be all kinds of weird tricks you can pull off when the game comes out, that sort of thing. But it's a different type of game fundamentally. You have basically only humans, although they're 3 different factions, and it takes place very locally. Whereas Exodus takes place way, way, way out there in the Centauri cluster, which is the gods only know how many light years away from Earth. And despite that, despite nominally me personally being more interested in the lore and the world building of Exodus, I think in terms of the technical execution and the effort being put into this, so far, I have to say I'm more impressed by the Expanse. I'm more impressed by what Owlcat has shown us so far and their passion and dedication to the project. Which is not to say that Archetype Entertainment has not put the same passion and dedication into their game. It's very possible they have. But they've shown us a lot less. It's more a lot of talk and lore and what have you. And the lore is, I think, absolutely fascinating and interesting when it comes to Exodus. But in terms of just technical performance, what's been shown so far, and Owlcat's dedication, Owlcat is just winning at this stage of the game. Another point I think I'd like to make is that if we look at the track record of Owlcat in recent years versus a newbie on the block, yes, Archetype Entertainment is composed partially of veterans, right, from the industry, BioWare, Old Guard, BioWare, what have you. Owlcat has just been much more active. We know what they can do. We know their capabilities. Yes, they've been primarily exclusively active within the realm of isometric CRPGs, but I think that is better evidence for making a great game, even if it is a AAA action RPG shooter in space, than a bunch of guys who haven't made a game in decades. And sorry to say that. And I gotta level with you. Ultimately, I think the Expanse and Exodus exist in some sort of competition. Why is that? It's because Mass Effect has massively, no pun intended, failed. We probably will never get a Mass Effect 5, 4, however you want to term it or phrase it. And so these are the games that are neck and neck in competition with each other in terms of being that, if you wish to call it, spiritual successor to Mass Effect. And both of them are going to carry the DNA of Mass Effect to varying degrees. In the case of Exodus, you have these old guard veterans from BioWare. It's clearly been inspired by Mass Effect. There are lots of things in the gameplay footage, the way they describe things, the lore, what have you. There's a lot of Mass Effect-y kind of things in it. And Owlcat has just flat out said they have been inspired by Mass Effect. So it's really a difficult call here. But at this stage of the game, I do have more faith in Owlcat. I think they're probably going to deliver in a more sincere fashion. And the most important factor in all of this is that Owlcat is independent. And you guys know, I've talked about this topic a number of times on the channel. Owlcat being independent means they have carte blanche to do what they want. They can work within the restraints they feel are necessary or not necessary. It means they're not going to be affected by boardroom decisions. It means they're not going to be affected by political garbage that needs to be thrown in the game because Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast demands it. They can simply make a game as they deem fit to make a game. And that is, well, to say the very least, absolutely fantastic. That is, unfortunately, the heavy albatross that hangs around the necks of Archetype Entertainment. Yes, allegedly, supposedly, James Olin received this holy promise from Wizards of the Coast that Wizards of the Coast and or Hasbro would not interfere and that he would be given full reign and full control over the development team and the company of Archetype Entertainment. That's probably true, but when you look at certain things in Exodus, it becomes very apparent that if boardroom decisions in Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro have not been influencing certain things, such as character design, ultimately Archetype Entertainment has made this decision to implement things that are not super appealing about their game, if I'm perfectly blunt. And Owlcat, quite frankly, has done the opposite based on the little we've seen. And that is just huge. Ultimately, I've come to the conclusion over the years that if you're not independent as a studio, at least in the majority, like Larian is 70% independent, 30% owned by Tencent, but Tencent generally doesn't give a crap about this sort of thing, you're going to be in a difficult position to produce a good game. Is that the only reason? Is that the only obstacle to producing a good game? Obviously not. But I just have to go with Team Owlcat at the moment. And like I said, it might not seem like a competition. You could have both games living next to each other, being amazing games, totally possible. But the comparisons are going to be there, and I see the comparisons, and so I'm making them. Anyway, I think it's really, really cool what they're doing in terms of hiring astronauts and getting consultants from real life, scientists basically, to consult on the game and let them know how things work. And it's very, very obvious that they're putting all their heart, all their passion, all their energy into this. They really, really want this thing to work out. And there's no question, they are cooking. Owlcat is cooking. I really think this is the time of ascendancy for Owlcat. And right around the corner, we have other things in the form of Dark Heresy, which I'll be talking about in a separate video. And yeah, it's a good time to be Owlcat, and I think it's a good time to be a customer and a fan of Owlcat. I don't know about Archetype. We'll have to see. That doesn't mean I won't be covering Exodus. I will, quite extensively, quite soon. But that's my 2 cents right there, lords and ladies. But, as always, I have to say, thank you very much for tuning in. And if you like my content, you like my takes, you can leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe. It's much appreciated, as it really helps out the channel, helps spreads it out to the algorithm. And I will check all of you out later. Take care.